Everything was spruce and neat in the cottage. On the table was spread a white cloth, and there were 7 little plates with 7 little loaves, and 7 little glasses with wine in them, and knives and forks laid in order. And by the wall stood 7 little beds. Then, as she was very hungry, she picked a little piece off each loaf, and drank a very little wine out of each glass. And after that, she thought she would lie down and rest. So she tried all the little beds, and one was too long, and another was too short, till at last the 7th suited her, and there she laid herself down and went to sleep. Presently in came the masters of the cottage, who were 7 little dwarfs that lived among the mountains, and dug and searched about for gold. They lighted up their 7 lamps, and saw directly that all was not right. The first said, "Who has been sitting on my stool?" The second, "Who has eaten off my plate?" The third, "Who has picking my bread?" The fourth, "Who has been meddling with my spoon?" The fifth, "Who has been handling my fork?" The sixth, "Who has been cutting with my knife?" The seventh, "Who has been drinking my wine?" Then the first looked round and said, "Who has been lying on my bed?" And the rest came running to him, and everyone cried out that somebody had been upon his bed. But the 7th saw Snow White, and called all his brethren to come and see her. And they cried out with wonder and astonishment, and brought their lamps to look at her, and said, "Good heavens, what a lovely child she is!" And they were delighted to see her, and took care not to wake her. And the 7 dwarfs slept an hour with each of the other dwarfs in turn, till the night was gone. In the morning Snow White told them all her story, and they pitied her, and said if she would keep all things in order, and cook, and wash, and knit, and spin for them, she might stay where she was, and they could take good care of her. Then they went out all day long to their work, seeking for gold and silver in the mountains. And Snow White remained at home. And they warned her and said, "The Queen will soon find out where you are, so take care and let no one in." But the Queen, now that she thought Snow White was dead, believed that she was certainly the handsomest lady in the land. And she went to the mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror, tell me true, of all the ladies in the land, who is the fairest? Tell me who." And the mirror answered, "Thou, Queen, art the fairest in all this land, but over the hills in the greenwood shade, where the 7 dwarfs their dwelling have made, there Snow White is hiding her head, and she is lovelier far, O Queen, than thee." Then the Queen was very much alarmed, for she knew that the mirror always spoke the truth, and was sure that the servant had betrayed her, and she couldn't bear to think that anyone lived who was more beautiful than she was. So she disguised herself as an old peddler and went away over the hills to the place where the dwarfs dwelt. Then she knocked at the door and cried, "Fine wares to sell." Snow White looked out at the window and said, "Good day, good woman. What have you to tell?" "Good wares, fine wares," said she. laces and bobbins of all colors. I will let the old lady in. She seems to be a very good sort of body, thought Snow White, and she ran down and unbolted the door. Bless me, said the old woman, how badly your stays are laced. Let me lace them up with one of my nice new laces. Snow White didn't dream of any mischief, so she stood up before the old woman, but she set to work so nimbly and pulled the lace so tight that Snow White lost her breath and fell down as if she were dead. That's an end of all thy beauty, said the spiteful queen, and went away home. In the evening, the 7 dwarfs returned, and I needn't say how grieved they were to see their faithful Snow White stretched upon the ground motionless, as if she were quite dead. However, they lifted her up, and when they found what was the matter, they cut the lace, and in a little time she began to breathe, and soon came to life again. Then they said, the old woman was the queen herself. Take care another time, and let no one in when we are away. When the queen got home, she went straight to her mirror and spoke to it as usual. But to her great surprise, it still said, Thou, queen, art the fairest in all this land, but over the hills in the greenwood shade, where the 7 dwarfs their dwelling have made, there Snow White is hiding her head, and she is lovelier far, O queen, than thee. Then the blood ran cold in her heart with spite and malice to see that Snow White still lived, and she dressed herself up again in a disguise, but very different from the one she wore before, and took with her a poisoned comb. When she reached the dwarf's cottage, she knocked at the door and cried, Fine wares to sell. But Snow White said, I dare not let anyone in. Then the queen said, Only look at my beautiful combs, and gave her the poisoned one, and it looked so pretty that she took it up and put it into her hair to try it. But the moment it touched her head, the poison was so powerful that she fell down senseless. There you may lie, said the queen, and went her way. But by good luck the dwarf returned very early that evening, and when they saw Snow White lying on the ground, they thought what had happened, and soon found the poisoned comb. And when they took it away, she recovered and told them all that had passed, and they warned her once more not to open the door to anyone.